Rugby Championship round 4, folks. Wallabies and Pumas going at it again. Pumas will be very disappointed with that loss last week. A game they were kind of going into as big favourites. Couldn't manage to get a result over in La Plata. And for the Wallabies, their campaign properly got underway. It's the opposite end of the scale. Last minute win. After a couple of disappointing results at home against the Springboks, they got their campaign underway. They are still bottom of the log, but both these sides with the kind of 1 and 2 record have a chance to get a 50-50 record and maybe hope that the All Blacks can beat the Boks to keep everybody's chances alive. But we'll go through the squads which have been named for this one. The stats, you know, I love a good stat, some predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how things are going to go. Like I mentioned, it was a 1-pointer last week, 20 points to 19 in La Plata. It was wet. I believe the forecast in Santa Fe is a little bit better, so we may see something different from both these sides. And in terms of the Pumas outfit, you feel like Felipe Contepomi has decided to opt for a little bit more experience. I mean, he's got Julio Montoya, who's getting his 100th cap in this game, so massive congratulations to him. There's only a couple or a handful of Pumas who've managed that achievement, one of them being Augustine Creevy, who retired in the last game. That was a little bit of a damp way to celebrate your final game, which was a home loss in terrible conditions. So Montoya would rather be getting his 100th cap to be a win. That would be something special for him. But he continues on. He's one of the experienced guys alongside Gajo and Sclavi. So the front row is unchanged, but it's the second row where you feel like there's a lot more experience with Petty and Lavanini. Last week was Zubiolo and Molina. Molina's only got his test start this very year in the July tests, and he has looked pretty good, but having Petty back in the side and Lavanini there as well is a much more familiar locking duo for the Pumas. And I mean, Rubiolo's not available because of that knock that he took early on in the last game, but it just feels slightly more, I don't want to say comfortable, but it feels more familiar, and you feel like the Pumas, that type 5, should do pretty well. Back row was good last week. Matera, Crema, and Gonzalez. That continues on. That was one of the areas that they actually look pretty good, so there's no need to make any changes there. Gonzalo Bertrano and Thomas Albornoz makes a bit of a change, with Albornoz getting the nod at 10. Remember him being that kind of out-and-out 10. He's actually been getting some decent game time in recent times. Like his first few Pumas appearances, I think under Checker, were basically 5-minute stints at the end or a whole game on the bench, but he's actually getting a start in the number 10 jersey. He did get a start against Uruguay in the July tests. Hard to judge his performance based on that game and the starting role, but I, for one, am keen to see how he goes because I think he can run the show pretty well. He's a creative number 10 who's able to put other guys into space. Santiago Chocobares and Lucio Cinti, that is the same midfield combo, and Chocobares has been doing really well, especially with his defensive shifts. He's a hard-tackling number 12. Batista Del Rey comes in on the right wing ahead of Cordero. Mateo Carreras has been sharp on the left. Both those guys will be looking to get a bit more ball, but the conditions last week didn't really fit playing it out wide all the time. And then Juan Cruz Malia is there at 15, so same for him. With the retirement of Crevi, Ruiz is back to that number 16 jersey. Vivas and Bejo are the two prop replacements. Molina drops to the bench. Oviedo comes into the 23 as a loose forward replacement. Likewise, Grondona is there, so it is still a 6-2 split for the Pumas, and then Gonzalo Garcia and Santiago Carreras are the two back replacements. Remember, Santiago Carreras, being as versatile as he is, can cover at least 4 positions in the back line, being both wings, fullback, and number 10. So, yeah, they've got guys who can move around if needs be. For the Wallabies, I was going to say Boks, for the Wallabies, I believe they've got a few injury-enforced replacements. I haven't seen Joe Schmidt's press conference yet. They did mention that Noah Lolesio has got a back strain, so is unavailable. His change is certainly one of the biggest ones. When I initially saw the squad, I assumed he had been dropped because he hasn't really set the world alight thus far for the Wallabies. It can be a little bit unfair on him because he's played a couple of games where his forward pack was on the back foot against the Boks, and he's played a game in the wet, which is not an ideal one to show your skill set as a 10. But yeah, still, if you're a great player, you still manage to look good. He's not looked the best. So Donaldson's getting a crack, but it is because of injury. So that's, I guess, kind of disruptive to Joe's plans because he still talked up Lolesio after the last game. Joe's plans to kind of give him a really good run at 10 has been disrupted by injury. He's one of a few changes. The front row is the same with Bell, Fassler, and Tupou there. There's more of a bit of big news with James Slipper, who's going to equal George Gregan's Wallabies test record if he comes off the bench. That's a massive congratulations to him. But the starting front row of Bell, Fassler, and Tupou looked way better than what we saw against the Box. Admittedly, the Pumas are a different team, but just that extra bit of grunt up front gave the Wallabies a better platform. So, yeah, pleasing to see them front up and pleasing to see them continue on. Frost and Williams are the second row. I didn't see it confirmed in the Wallabies press release, but I saw it rumoured on the Raw that Lukan Salakaia-Loto has picked up a knock. So that would make sense. I felt like he was one of the better players for the Wallabies last week, so him being dropped would seem odd. So Williams comes into the starting lineup. Valentini, Tizzano, and Wilson was again one of the kind of bright spots of the Wallabies side last week. Valentini and Wilson making a heck of a lot of carries. Valentini getting himself a try. Tizzano at the breakdown and with his tackles, absolutely massive as well. So I'm pleased there's no changes there. Gordon and Donaldson is the 9-10 combo like I mentioned, so there's no change at 9. And Donaldson's going to get a decent run at 10 because he only got a few minutes last week. The midfield is Stewart and Ikitau. That continues on from last week. I was pretty pleased with Stewart's debut. He looked solid. He made his tackles. He was looking to shovel the ball wide. Exactly what you want from your number 12. And then Ikitau provides that little bit of magic. So I think they complement each other pretty well. Corin Betty and Jorgensen are the wings this week. So Jorgensen takes the right wing spot from Callaway, who switches to fullback. And there is no Tom Wright in the side this week. Again, I didn't see it confirmed, but I did see it speculated that Wright also kind of picked up an injury as well. And Wright has played every game in the 15 jumper under Joe Schmidt thus far. So I would assume he's injured if Joe's decided to finally switch him. Maybe he's just getting a rest, but yeah. Nasser, Slipper, and Alatoa, that is the front row replacements. Josh Canham will get his debut from the bench as the replacement lock. Very pleased for him, because in terms of his Super Rugby form for the Rebels, he was absolutely cracking. Longy Gleeson is the loose forward replacement. Tate McDermott, Tom Liner, and Josh Fluke, the back replacement. So Liner and Fluke coming into the side from outside the 23. Stats. Man, does the Argentinian breakdown need to be way more secure than last week. They lost multiple rucks to the Aussies. They can't be doing that. And also, their only try last week came from a maul. The Aussies have been very vulnerable to maul tries. You think maybe the Pumas want to go for that a bit more this week, because they were quite happy last week to largely opt for 3 points. They didn't always get the maul pay, but they certainly got it that first time. Maybe that's an area where you want to try and get some more pay, but also they've got backs like Dalki, like Mateo Carreras, like Malia. These guys are all try-scoring weapons, so it's a little bit disappointing they weren't able to get more 5-pointers compared to, you know, the squad that they've got. The goal kicking was good, though. The goal kicking was very accurate, so it's always easy to say in hindsight they should have gone for tries, but their goal kicking was keeping the scoreboard ticking over, and the goal kicking has been improving throughout the season for the Pumas. For the Wallabies, oh my goodness, they need to catch a restart. They were so poor on the restart last week. It was comical. It was so frustrating at the time. I'm not even a Wallabies fan, but I was pulling my hair out just watching them fail again and again and again to catch restarts. They will need to be better there. But as I mentioned, the breakdown work from their point of view was fantastic. They won 6 turnovers last week, which is great. The kicking game, you would feel, will need to be slightly more accurate. Last week, some of those kicks through felt a little bit aimless. The lineup, though, was 100%. The scrum was a lot more solid, as I mentioned. They still conceded the 1 maul try, which is an area they absolutely need to improve, because it's thus far, in all their tests this year, only the Georgia game where they haven't conceded a maul try. And 112 carries for 279 meters kind of shows the attacking game is still not there yet. It's a relatively low return on meters per carry. Obviously, the weather's got something to do with that. They showed a couple of their tries. They got the magic in them, so they can do it. But as a team thus far, overall, it's still not quite, it's not quite there. It is probably getting there. Just got to be a bit patient, but fingers crossed from their point of view, and with the improved weather conditions, it'll be a little bit sharper this week. Last 5 games goes down to 3-2 in the Wallabies' favour with that most recent win. Remember, the most recent one was only that 1-point win. The average score between the sides across the last 5 is 29-28. to the Pumas. There's one game which was back in 2022 where it was 48-17, which would kind of blows out the average. So, yeah, the Aussies and the Pumas in recent times don't seem to have a trend based on home or away advantage. Like the Aussies won in the Gold Coast, the Aussies won in Mendoza, then the Pumas won in San Juan, and then the Pumas won in Sydney. So, and then last week in La Plata, the Pumas lost, the Wallabies won. So there's no real trend like that the Wallabies always lose away, the Pumas always hold at home. Doesn't really seem to be a thing. So take that for what it's worth in terms of the home and away advantage this week. But the Pumas, thus far in the season, has tended to have one good performance and one bad performance in them. They did that against France, bad then good. They did it against the All Blacks, good then bad. They played pretty bad last week, so maybe they're going to pick up and blow the Wallabies away. Kind of have to wait and see. They are the favourites. They are 4-point favourites with the bookies and 8-point favourites with the Rugby Forecast algorithm. I believe it is the first time for the Wallabies to be playing in Santa Fe, so that's at least something new. It is a afternoon kickoff, 4 p.m. It's pretty early for those of us in New Zealand. I think 7 o'clock. It's very early for you guys in Australia. Pierre Brousset, the Frenchman, is the ref. For you guys in the United States, if you want to watch any of these Rugby Championship matches and other rugby stuff, check out Flow Rugby down in the description. They're an affiliate of the channel. They got all these games, including All Blacks, Springboks, Argentina Wallabies on their service. Check them out. You guys subscribe to the channel if you want more rugby content, because there will be more on the way for sure. You guys take care, and talk to you guys again soon. See you later.